Mandalorian Episode 4 retells a classic story, and it's filled with Easter eggs and information about the Mandalorian's past and the Star Wars universe post-Return of the Jedi. And it retells one of the classic stories that inspired Star Wars in the first place. This is ScreenCrush. Hey everyone, I'm Ryan Airy. The episode opens on planet Sorgan, not to be confused with sorghum, that's a grain. A village of farmers are attacked by raiders, and then later on, Mando and a new character named Cara Dune train the villagers to fight off the raiders. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because you've probably seen this story before, like in the Clone Wars episode Bounty Hunters, or in the Stephen King novel Wolves of the Calla, or the 2016 movie The Magnificent Seven, or the original Magnificent Seven, or The Three Amigos, or maybe you're familiar with the original story, Kurowsawa's masterpiece The Seven Samurai. In that film, a village is threatened by bandits and they hire 7 Ronin, now that's samurai without masters, to defend their village. In all of these stories, they train the villagers and fight off the bandits. Star Wars has always had a close relationship with Kurowsawa. George Lucas cited the director as a major influence on the original Star Wars, particularly his film The Hidden Fortress. But Star Wars Revenge of the Sith already contains a subtle reference to the 7 Samurai. The way Yoda continues to touch the top of his head is a visual reference to Kanbei's habit of feeling for his lost top knot in the 7 Samurai. Anyways, back to Sorgan, and a couple things I noticed about the villagers. One, the kids are kicking around a ball made of twigs, and this is something I've noticed that makes for good Star Wars storytelling. If there's an analog to the real world in Star Wars, like a soccer ball, it has to be kept as vague as possible. If this had been like a glowing ball or a soccer ball painted with different colors, it would have felt off-putting. Star Wars can't feel too sci-fi or too similar to our world, and this was one of the problems with Attack of the Clones. The sports bar, the diner, it was too similar to the real world. But the restaurant in this episode is kept vague, and that makes it work. Anyways, notice the villagers also have a droid, and this is such a nice, small touch that informs the rest of the episode. It's a visual cue that these people aren't primitive. They don't think the ATST is their angry god, they know technology and can be trained to use it. Like I said, it's a smaller detail that really helps to flesh out the universe. The opening's pretty clever. We open from the point of view of the krill, and then they're harvested by the farmers. And then right after this, the farmers are, in a sense, harvested by the bandits. Mando calls Baby Yoda,
"You little womp rat."
Womp rats are animals that are about the size of a thermal exhaust port on a Death Star.
Placed a bullseye womp rats in my T-16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters.
Now, even though they're big, don't confuse them with the ROUSs.
Rodents of unusual size? I don't think they exist.
In the restaurant, we spot a Twilek, a fairly common species in Star Wars that we talked about in our last video. Also, in the market, there's a Loth cat. These animals are native to planet Lothal and are featured prominently in the show Star Wars Rebels. Then we meet Cara Dune, played by Gina Carano. She's an ex-Rebel shock trooper and gives us a little insight into the military after the rebellion.
Saw most of my action mopping up after Endor.
Now notice how she says after Endor and not after Jakku. Endor was basically the battle where the Empire was defeated, but Jakku was the true end of the war. But this just goes to show that Jakku was the death rattle for the Empire, but everybody considered them beaten after Endor. She also calls the Imperials Imps, which is a shortened version of Imperials, but might also be a tribute to the popular in-universe fan films, Imps the Relentless. Cara has a small rebellion tattoo on her cheek that's hard to see, but it's easy to spot on her action figure. We get a little bit more info here about Mando and the Great Purge, mainly that he's not a Mandalorian by birth.
My parents were killed, and the Mandalorians took care of me.
So we know that something saved his life from a battle droid right here. Now I'm guessing this was probably a Mandalorian who saved him. It's too bad because I was really hoping it was Jedi, maybe even Obi-Wan Kenobi. This idea that Mandalorians never remove their helmets is new to Star Wars. In Clone Wars, not every Mandalorian wears armor, and in Rebels, they only wore helmets while fighting. So I'm guessing that after the Great Purge, they swore to never remove their helmets again. If you have a theory, let me know down in the comments.
This is the way.
They have to go up against the ATST, also known as a chicken walker. Cara says,
I've seen that thing take out entire companies of soldiers in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, well, I've seen a whole armored division of those things get taken down by teddy bears. And I love these modifications the bandits made to the ATST, like the face paint and the red eyes. Looks badass. Using the tank is a good example of what we're seeing in every episode of Mandalorian. The Empire is gone, but their military weapons are up for grabs. Similar to how after the Soviet Union collapsed, everyone was worried about nuclear weapons falling into the wrong hands. And by the way, this scene is by far the best use of children in Star Wars. Also, a special shout out to this sound. The episode was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, whose father Ron Howard redirected Solo: A Star Wars Story, and I think it's a pretty solid chapter. Oh, and speaking of the Howard family, there's actually a really cool cameo in this last scene. this person right here, that's your mom. And to be honest, my heart was in my throat when I thought Baby Yoda was going to get shot by the bounty hunter. Let me know if you freaked out down in the comments. I tweeted the other day that The Mandalorian doesn't really feel like a TV show to me. It's more like chapters in a larger story, like the old movie serials that inspired Star Wars to begin with. Now that format inspired the serialized storytelling of TV shows, but Mandalorian feels less contained than a traditional TV show. Like you have to watch every episode, and the chapters are so short they don't feel like a whole episode of TV. I don't know, what do you think about that? Let me know down in the comments. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy. This is The Way.
This is the way.